Um, thank you, Acting President, and I'm pleased to rise to speak to Mr Grimley's motion. And I think following on from Mr O'Donoghue, well, I think the Legal and Social Issues Committee's inquiry into the justice system, challenge accepted. You're right, the system is broken and we do need to repair it. And we do need to explore all ways of doing that. And we need to understand fundamentally why people are in our justice system, what has caused them to get there. We know certainly that you can pretty much pick there's 5 postcodes in Victoria, and we know that a significant number of people in our prison and justice system will come from those postcodes. So we know that this is about disadvantage, and it's about trying to do things differently, and certainly looking at prevention rather than as we constantly say, dealing with these issues by putting an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. But Mr Grimley's motion today is looking at expanding electronic monitoring for offenders and introducing 24/7 alcohol monitoring as a sentencing option. And with the briefings and certainly going to the motion that Mr Grimley's put on the paper, the Hinge Party would like to see a trial of this in Victoria. And at the outset, I welcome the thorough approach that Mr Grimley has taken to this motion. We were provided, along with I think all of you in here, briefings and plenty of information that explained the rationale and the reasoning for Mr Grimley putting forward this motion. And Mr O'Donoghue's right. At the fundamental base of this is about reducing recidivism. And I think that is honourable, and it's something that I certainly deeply care about. Because as I mentioned, the system is failing. It's failing its victims. And one of the areas that it's really inadequate on is alcohol and other drug treatment. We know that our prisons now are almost de facto institutions for people experiencing mental health, issues with trauma, alcohol and drug dependence, homelessness, as we heard in our homelessness inquiry. We're now, in the last budget, we put more money into prisons than we did into housing. So we really are looking at housing our disadvantaged population in prisons rather than in public housing. We look at what the IBAC report yesterday, again showing that certainly our correction system has huge problems. And we've got prison officers bringing in contraband, stealing from prisoners and selling them on the market. The prisons are not safe, and especially for someone with mental health problems, mental health issues. So any policy that diverts people away from them should be considered. And I certainly think alcohol monitoring of offenders can be another tool in our toolbox for repeat offenders. We know that well over half of prisoners who enter into our prison system have got alcohol and other drug issues. We also know that over half of them actually have mental health issues, and many of them that has actually been diagnosed. So, look, Mr Grimley's made a very strong argument for electronic monitoring, but I certainly, I don't think it is a panacea to recidivism by any means. Whether it's a cost-effective way to reduce recidivism, I think that's worth investigating. I must say I was surprised when we reached out to some stakeholders about this motion, and we reached out to, in particular, the Foundation of Alcohol Research, FAIR, and they were extraordinarily emphatically opposed to this, which I must say I wasn't actually expecting. They said the devices are stigmatising, they breach human rights, they're expensive and they're ineffective. The technology is unreliable, it doesn't reduce reoffending, it doesn't reduce prison populations, it increases incarceration, and it does not treat problematic alcohol use. Now, Mr Grimley mentioned the trial in New Zealand, the trial of ankle bracelets as part of their drug court over there. And they found that 32% of offenders committed a crime while wearing the bracelet. The reconviction generally for offenders on community sentence orders is around 25%. So we're actually seeing higher rates of reoffending. But look, this was a very small study, but it probably just shows that this is not a magic bullet. And I will note that Mr Grimley does not attest that this is a magic bullet either. That he also agrees that this is part of another tool in our toolbox, as I say. Many of the offenders, and I note that Mr Grimley also in his briefings to us said that this would only be any trial would be a voluntary trial. So the offender would agree voluntarily to enter into the trial. But it was interesting when the FAIR reported to us that the largest group amongst the interviewed offenders in the New Zealand trial explained the testing had no effect on their substance use because they had already made the decision to abstain from drugs and alcohol. And I wonder in a voluntary circumstance whether that's who you're going to get. And if it does help someone in that, in maintaining their abstinence of alcohol, if that's what they want to do, then it's it shouldn't be dismissed. Now, so I think the evidence is out, which is why I think the motion of asking for more consideration of this is welcome, and I certainly would hope that the Justice Inquiry is going to get an opportunity to do that as well. But may I also say that treatment. We can't do this, and VADA, the Victorian Alcohol and Drug Association, said that even if we were to go down this path of drug testing as part of sentencing, then we need far greater treatment services. The wait times for treatment are absolutely appalling. And this will not necessarily be a cheaper option. So I note that there's also been an investigation into the notion of using electronic monitoring in Queensland. The Queensland Human Rights Commission states that electronic monitoring breaches the human rights of privacy. The lack of controls in how the information is gathered is being used by governments, and that it leads to stigmatisation, and there's a possibility of vigilantism. This Saturday is Support Not Punish Day, and this, I think, goes to the heart of what we are doing. We are constantly, and certainly if you look at the Sentencing Act, punishment is just one of those objectives. But when we look at the recidivism rates of people we punish, that's not working. So we need to be looking at how we can keep our community safe, how we can rehabilitate people, how do we provide the safety nets that people need so that they don't reoffend. And look, electronic monitoring, these types of bracelets may be one of those things. But I would say employment would be one of the major reasons. We know that employment is the biggest protector from brushing against the justice system. We know education is another protector, and we know housing is a massive protector. So in some ways, once we get all the things that we know in order, then maybe we should start looking at things that we know less about and start looking at those again. But I certainly don't oppose this motion, and I thank Mr Grimley for raising it, and I think it certainly enabled myself to look at this issue, and we're all very busy, and I know we don't get opportunities to kind of do the sort of free reading, but I did learn a lot in considering this motion. I really welcome this being part of the discussion of the Justice Inquiry, and I will leave it at that. Thank you, Acting President.